In the distant reaches of space, beyond the stars and the known universe, a quiet but powerful tension simmered. It was in the cold vastness of this galaxy that two species, once unaware of each other, now found themselves on the brink of war. One of them, an ancient and powerful alien race, had watched Earth from afar for centuries. They had seen humanity rise from a species struggling to survive on a small planet to a growing power among the stars. To the aliens, this was an inevitable moment. The human race, once weak and primitive, now with the technology to rival even the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. The aliens had been watching Earth's progress for years, tracking their space missions and the small human ships venturing into the cosmos. At first, they had dismissed humanity as insignificant, but over time, the humans had surprised them. Their technological advances, their ability to adapt, and their sheer willpower had slowly begun to stir fear. The alien species, known as the Vorith, had seen many civilizations rise and fall, but something about humanity caught their attention, something that worried them. Their scientists predicted that Earth would soon venture beyond their own solar system, and if humanity wasn't stopped, it could become a real threat to the galaxy. The Vorith were not a species that feared easily. For millennia, they had ruled a large part of the galaxy, their ships the size of small moons, and their weapons capable of destroying entire planets. They had faced wars, rebellions, and countless challenges, but each time their power and military might had won out. They saw no reason why humanity should be any different. They would crush the humans before they ever had the chance to grow beyond their small corner of the universe. A council was held on the Vorith homeworld, deep in the heart of a planet that was surrounded by a ring of burning gas and ice. The Vorith leaders were a powerful group, their minds interconnected in a way that allowed them to make decisions with unmatched speed and efficiency. As the council gathered, they discussed what should be done. Their intelligence confirmed that humanity was on the edge of war, a war that would challenge everything the Vorith had built. They feared the humans would attack first, believing that they could conquer the galaxy with their ships and their advanced technology. A decision was made. The Vorith would assemble their entire fleet, a colossal force designed to crush any opposition. They would head toward Earth, and in one swift strike, they would end any potential human threat. The fleet was massive, with hundreds of warships, each capable of causing destruction on an unimaginable scale. The entire galaxy knew that the Vorith were coming. No one doubted their power. Back on Earth, however, the situation was different. The people of Earth were unaware of the Vorith and their plans, but they were not unprepared. For years, humanity had been watching the stars, exploring the unknown. In the quiet corners of space, Earth's brightest minds had been working, building and refining new technology to protect their world from the dangers lurking in the cosmos. They had learned from their past mistakes, their wars, their struggles. Earth's defense systems were stronger than ever, and they had even begun to send out exploratory ships to distant stars. It was during one of these missions that they first detected something strange in space. A fleet was heading toward Earth. At first, humanity had no idea who the fleet belonged to. The ships were large, and their movement was too calculated to be a natural phenomenon. It wasn't until human intelligence agencies had intercepted some alien signals that they realized who was coming. The message was clear. The Vorith were approaching, and they intended to destroy Earth. The news spread quickly. Governments scrambled to act. Military forces were put on high alert, and Earth's leaders met in secret to discuss their next move. It was a moment unlike any other. Earth had never faced an external threat of this magnitude. The people of Earth were not sure if they would survive, but they knew they had no choice but to prepare for the worst. Every military ship was called to action. Scientists worked around the clock, refining weapons and defenses that might give Earth a fighting chance. Among all of this, there was one person who remained calm. Admiral Jenna Rodriguez was known for her strategic mind and unwavering leadership. She had seen the best and worst of humanity during her years of service. She understood what was at stake. She had trained for years for a moment like this, But even she knew that this situation was unlike anything they had ever prepared for. A fleet of warships capable of destroying planets was on its way to Earth, and humanity had only one chance to defend itself. Jenna stood in front of a large holographic map of the Earth's solar system, her eyes focused on the blinking dots that represented the alien fleet. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing on her shoulders. Earth had never faced such a threat, and now the fate of an entire species rested on her shoulders. She knew what had to be done. She had to lead the fleet into battle and show the Vorith that Earth would not go down without a fight. The tension was building as the days went by. News outlets broadcasted the approaching threat, and people all over the world began to prepare. Some sought shelter, others trained to fight. Some were terrified, and others were determined to stand strong. But all of them shared one thing: the fear of the unknown. What would happen when the Vorith arrived? Would they be crushed under the weight of their military might, or would Earth find a way to survive? As the alien fleet moved closer, Earth's forces continued to prepare. But even as they gathered their strength, there was a strange, unexpected twist. A single, small human ship appeared in the midst of the massive alien fleet. It was not a warship. It was a research vessel, sleek and unassuming. It had no weapons, no shields, and no defenses to speak of. It was, by all accounts, completely vulnerable. Yet it boldly approached the approaching alien armada. The ship's captain, a veteran of space missions, sent a simple message to the alien fleet: "We come in peace." The message was received with confusion by the alien commanders. They had prepared for a battle they were certain would be one-sided. They expected Earth to send out an army, an entire fleet of ships, all ready to fight. But instead, they saw only one small human ship. The Vorith were confused. Why would a species expecting to go to war send such a fragile vessel? It made no sense. Admiral Jenna was watching from Earth's command center, her mind racing. The humans had sent a message of peace, but she knew better than anyone. They weren't just sending a message. They were testing the waters, trying to see if the Vorith would listen before Earth had to take action. Jenna understood that humanity's survival might depend on this one ship. She didn't know what the aliens would do, but she knew the fate of Earth was now in their hands. As the human ship neared the Vorith fleet, the tension reached a boiling point. Earth's forces were on high alert, ready to strike if necessary. But all eyes were now focused on that one small ship and the strange, silent standoff between the two forces. What would happen next? No one knew, but one thing was certain. The galaxy was waiting for war, and it was all about to change. The alien fleet approached Earth with a purpose, its massive ships gliding through the void like shadows in the night. The Vorith, a species with a long and ruthless history of conquest, had come to enforce their will upon the galaxy. For generations, they had maintained control over countless worlds, each victory strengthening their belief in their supremacy. To them, humanity was a mere blip on the radar, a species that had barely scratched the surface of space exploration, too young and inexperienced to stand a chance. But the Vorith underestimated humanity's resolve. As Earth's defenses were put into place, humanity's military forces readied themselves for the worst. Thousands of soldiers, countless warships, and the most advanced technology Earth had to offer were now on standby, waiting for the first sign of an alien attack. The air was thick with anticipation and fear. No one knew what to expect, but every person on Earth knew that their very existence could be at stake. Nations came together, their differences set aside for the moment, all focused on one goal: survival. But even as Earth's military forces scrambled to prepare, something unexpected happened. Far ahead of the alien fleet, a lone human ship, one that had previously been thought of as an experimental vessel, drifted slowly into the path of the Vorith armada. It was a small ship, no bigger than a commercial transport, with no visible weapons, shields, or the kind of technology you would expect to counter an enemy like the Vorith. It was, in every sense, outmatched and outclassed. The ship's captain, Admiral Jenna Rodriguez, had no illusions about the gravity of her mission. She was well aware that the Vorith expected Earth to fight back with full force. She had no intention of surprising them with an overwhelming fleet. Instead, she had decided to take a different route, a route that many might have called insane. Jenna had chosen to face the aliens with a single, small ship. It wasn't just a test of military might. It was a test of diplomacy, of humanity's willingness to stand firm in the face of overwhelming odds. Jenna's decision to send just one ship wasn't based on any overconfidence or naive hope that the aliens would back down. It was based on a calculated gamble. She knew that if humanity stood any chance of survival, it wasn't going to come from overpowering the Vorith fleet. It would come from showing the aliens something they hadn't considered: humanity's determination, its ingenuity, and its refusal to be intimidated. As the alien fleet loomed closer, the small human ship sent a message, simple and direct. "We come in peace." The message echoed through the vast expanse of space, a single sentence that would carry the weight of humanity's future. The Vorith, already on edge, intercepted the transmission. They had expected a declaration of war, an attempt at resistance. Instead, they received this unassuming message, a message that, in their eyes, made no sense. The Vorith were puzzled. Their intelligence had led them to believe that humanity, with its growing technological power, was preparing for a confrontation, one that would soon spill over into a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. But instead of a military fleet, the humans sent a single, small vessel. It wasn't even heavily armed. To the Vorith commanders, this was baffling. Why would a species with the potential to destroy them send a ship so unprepared? Was it a trick? A feint? Or was there something else behind the humans' strange decision? For a moment, the alien fleet hesitated. A few of the Vorith commanders suggested sending a fleet of ships to destroy the human vessel and move on. But others, more cautious, argued that there was more to this than met the eye. The humans had clearly made a statement, one they hadn't fully understood yet. As the fleet lingered in space, the air was thick with uncertainty. The Vorith were known for their decisive, quick action, but here they were stumped. Was this an act of bravery, a strategic maneuver, or something else entirely? On Earth, Admiral Jenna waited for a response, her heart heavy with the weight of her choice. She had no idea what would happen next. She had chosen to take this step. But now, the consequences of her decision were out of her hands. She couldn't help but wonder if her gamble would pay off or if humanity's future would end before it even began. The ship drifted closer to the heart of the Vorith fleet, its engines barely making a sound. Inside the vessel, Admiral Jenna stood in front of the ship's large holographic display, watching as the Vorith ships filled the screen. Each one was a towering giant compared to her small vessel. They looked like predators circling their prey, waiting for the slightest move to strike. Jenna knew that the stakes couldn't be higher. This one ship, this single human vessel, was all that stood between Earth and the unknown terror of the Vorith fleet. Back on Earth, the people watched anxiously, their eyes fixed on their screens as the news outlets broadcasted the developments. The world was silent, as though holding its breath. Would this single ship be enough to change the course of the galaxy? Would the aliens see it as a sign of weakness, or would they recognize it as something much more dangerous, a defiance of everything they thought they knew? As the hours passed, the alien fleet seemed to edge closer, as though waiting for something, perhaps a sign of aggression, or perhaps a response to the humans' bold message. Jenna's ship continued on its path, its message sent over and over, like a beacon in the darkness of space. "We come in peace." A simple message, but one with the weight of an entire species behind it. Then, after what seemed like an eternity, the Vorith made their move. They responded, not with a barrage of weapons, as many had expected, but with a strange, cold silence. The alien commanders had agreed on one thing: they could not ignore this message. They would approach it with caution, but they would not act rashly. Their response would be calculated, And perhaps, just perhaps, this was the opportunity they had been waiting for. Jenna's ship came to a halt. The Vorith had not fired. They had not launched their weapons or engaged the small human ship in any way. For a moment, it was as though time had stopped. The tension was unbearable, but in that silence, something incredible happened. The Vorith had paused. They hadn't destroyed the human ship, and they hadn't dismissed it either. In that small act of hesitation, the possibility of a peaceful resolution began to grow. The game had changed, but no one knew yet how it would end. The silence between the two forces spoke volumes. Would the Vorith finally recognize humanity as an equal, or would the peace that had been offered be rejected? The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The alien fleet continued to drift through the darkness of space, their ships as imposing as mountains against the backdrop of the stars. The Vorith, powerful and proud, had never encountered a species that stood in the way of their dominance. They were used to crushing their enemies without hesitation. Entire civilizations had fallen before their might, their fleets nothing more than dust in the vast expanse of space. And yet here they were, facing something they didn't quite understand. A single human ship, unarmed and unassuming, boldly stating that they came in peace. Inside the small ship, Admiral Jenna Rodriguez stood at the bridge, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the holographic display in front of her. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she did her best to remain composed. She had made her decision, and now there was no turning back. The ship's crew had already gone through the worst of the training, preparing for every worst-case scenario, but nothing had prepared them for the reality of standing before an alien fleet that could obliterate them in an instant. This wasn't a training simulation. This was real, and every second that passed felt like an eternity. She glanced over at her crew, each one focused on their tasks, their faces tense. They knew what was at stake. Their eyes flicked between the display screens showing the approaching alien ships and their commander, waiting for her orders. But there was nothing to be said. They were waiting, just like everyone else, for the Vorith to make their move. Would they fire? Would they respond to the human ship in a way that would ignite the war that everyone feared? Or would they do something that no one, not even Jenna, could predict? The tension in the air was thick. Every moment felt like it could be the last. On the other side of space, the Vorith fleet's commanders were deep in conversation. They had received the human message, and they were trying to make sense of it. They had expected something grand, an elaborate military display, but instead they had been greeted with a single ship, small, insignificant, and yet it carried a message of peace. To the Vorith, this made no sense. The humans were supposed to be a threat, but what kind of threat came in the form of a lone ship with no weaponry, no apparent defenses? "What do you think it means?" asked the commander of the lead ship, his voice cold and calculating. The second in command, a being as ancient as the stars, leaned forward, his eyes narrowed as he considered the situation. "It's a tactic, an attempt to throw us off. The humans are trying to create doubt, make us question their strength. They know they cannot match us in battle, so they hope to exploit our hesitation. We should destroy the ship and move on." Another voice interrupted. "We've never encountered a species like this. Their behavior doesn't fit any known pattern. What if this is not a trick? What if they're telling the truth?" The commander's gaze hardened. A single ship against a fleet of this size? No, it's a bluff. They're trying to appear harmless to lower our guard. Our task is clear. We destroy them and send a message to the rest of their kind. Humanity will not stand in the way of the Vorith. The argument went back and forth, each commander offering their own perspective. But in the end, the decision was made. They would not engage in an immediate attack. Not yet. The Vorith fleet would approach, but they would not fire. They would make the humans sweat, make them question their decision to send a lone ship. The message they wanted to send was clear. The Vorith were in control. Back on Earth, the world waited anxiously, watching as the events unfolded. People huddled in their homes, glued to their screens, while military commanders across the globe awaited their orders. They had no idea what was happening in space beyond the brief updates they received. All they knew was that their fate was in the hands of that one ship carrying Admiral Jenna and her crew. The hope of humanity rested on their shoulders. At that very moment, Jenna received a transmission, an unexpected one. It wasn't from the alien fleet, but from Earth's command center. Admiral Rodriguez, this is General Sanders. We've received confirmation from multiple sources that the Vorth fleet has paused its advance. They're waiting. We don't know why, but we believe they are assessing their next move. You're buying us time, but be prepared. We don't know what will happen next. Jenna's breath caught in her throat. Time. That was the only thing they had, and it was running out. Understood, she replied. She could feel the weight of her crew's eyes on her, waiting for her next words. Prepare for a possible response. We need to remain calm, and we need to be ready to act if they make a move. But for now, we wait. As Jenna spoke, the small human ship drifted silently toward the Vorth fleet. The distance between them was shrinking, but neither side made a move. The silence was deafening. Every heartbeat felt like a drum, pounding in the background as the vast, cold emptiness of space pressed in on them. Then, without warning, the Vorth fleet made their first move. A single ship from the Armada began to break away from the rest and slowly approached the human vessel. Its hull gleamed in the starlight, a symbol of its power, its weapons ready to be unleashed. Jenna watched in horror as the Vorth ship moved closer. This was it, the moment that would define humanity's fate. She had no illusions about the size and strength of the alien ships, but she had made her stand. She had sent the message. We come in peace. The human ship's systems beeped as they picked up the approaching alien vessel. Jenna's hand hovered over the controls, her crew holding their breath. Were the Vorth here to destroy them? Or was this an opportunity to communicate, to find a way to avoid the bloodshed they all feared? Admiral, one of her officers said quietly, "They're sending a transmission." Jenna nodded. "Put it through." A moment later, a voice crackled through the speakers. An alien voice, deep and mechanical. "Human vessel, you have made your move. Your message has been received. But you should understand this. Your actions have consequences. You are no longer alone in this galaxy. Your choices now will determine whether you are a friend or a threat." Jenna's grip tightened on the console. The Vorth were speaking. Was it a warning? A promise of war? She didn't know, but she had no choice but to reply. "We are not your enemies," she said, her voice steady despite the fear rising within her. "We only seek peace." For a moment, there was silence. Then, the alien ship broke the silence with a single word that would echo through the universe. "We shall see." The transmission ended, and the Vorth ship pulled back, returning to the main fleet. The rest of the alien fleet remained stationary, their intentions unclear. The humans aboard Jenna's ship were left in stunned silence, unsure of what to make of this unexpected turn of events. The tension was far from over. The galaxy was watching, and for the first time in a long while, the future seemed uncertain. The silence between the two forces stretched out like an eternity. The Vorth fleet, a seemingly unstoppable force of destruction, loomed in the distance, waiting for something. Whether it was a signal from their commanders, a mistake from the human ship, or perhaps a sign that would give them the justification they needed to strike, no one could say. But what was clear was that the Vorth, despite their intimidating power, had not acted yet. Inside the human vessel, the crew exchanged anxious glances, the weight of their silence as heavy as the dark vacuum outside. Admiral Jenna Rodriguez remained at the command console, her fingers twitching on the edge of the controls, poised to act at a moment's notice. Despite the fact that the Vorth had not yet attacked, there was no comfort in the stillness. They were waiting, waiting for the humans to show their hand, waiting for the next move. Jenna's mind raced. What was going on behind the closed doors of the Vorth fleet? Were they discussing their options? Was there a way to avoid the battle they all feared? Or was this simply the calm before the storm? She had no answers. All she could do was wait and hope. The crew continued to monitor the communication channels, scanning for any signs of movement or another transmission from the alien armada. For now, the Vorith were content to keep their distance, allowing the small human ship to drift closer, like a lone candle in the darkness of space. But that quiet would not last forever. Minutes passed, each one like an hour. And then finally, the silence was broken. The communication system buzzed to life, and a new transmission came through. It was from the lead ship of the Vorith fleet. The voice on the other end was cold, calculating, and unmistakably alien. "Human vessel, we have deliberated. Your message of peace is noted, but peace does not come freely. You have trespassed into our domain. Your species is weak, untested. You cannot stand against us, and yet you dare to speak to us as equals." Jenna's heart raced, but she kept her expression stoic. She knew this moment was coming. The Vorith could never truly accept humanity as equals. They saw themselves as the dominant force in the galaxy. Yet this was not the time to back down. Now, more than ever, they had to show strength. "We do not seek war," Jenna responded, her voice unwavering. "We are not your enemy, but we will defend our world if we must." The alien voice chuckled, an eerie sound that seemed to reverberate through the ship's speakers. "Defend? Against us? You have no army, no fleet to speak of. Your people are scattered across the stars. You are nothing compared to the might of the Vorith." The Vorith commander's words hung in the air, but Jenna was resolute. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. A single ship, carrying the weight of all Earth's hopes, stood alone before a fleet that could destroy it in an instant. There was no room for hesitation now. "If we are nothing," Jenna replied, "then why do you hesitate? Why haven't you destroyed us already?" The silence on the other end was thick, almost as if the Vorith were taken aback by her words. Jenna felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps the Vorith didn't understand humanity as much as they thought. Perhaps they didn't know how far the human spirit could stretch when pushed to the edge. "We hesitate," the alien voice said finally, "because you are not yet worth destroying. But understand this, human. This is your final chance. Leave our space, return to your world, and we will spare you. If you refuse, we will show you the true meaning of power." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge of the human ship bathed in an eerie silence once again. Jenna let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her crew exchanged nervous glances, but none spoke. They all knew the gravity of the situation. "Admiral," one of the officers spoke up, his voice shaky. "What do we do now?" Jenna stood still, her mind racing. The Vorith had offered them a way out, an ultimatum, a chance to save Earth by retreating. But this was not just about survival. It was about pride, about humanity's place in the galaxy. They couldn't turn back now. Not after everything they had fought for. "We don't retreat," Jenna said firmly. "We hold our ground." Her decision was final. There was no turning back now. The Vorith, meanwhile, were beginning to grow impatient. While they had allowed the humans to send their message and plead for peace, the time for hesitation was running out. The alien fleet had been designed for one purpose: to conquer, to destroy, to wipe out any who dared stand in their way. Peace was not something the Vorith knew how to handle. The galaxy was theirs to rule, and they would not tolerate anyone questioning that. But even as they pondered their next move, something unexpected happened. A strange signal flickered through their communication systems. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. The Vorith intelligence officers quickly began analyzing it. What they discovered sent a ripple of unease through the command center. The humans had not just sent a simple message. They had initiated something else, something far more subtle, but no less significant. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't a threat. It was a signal that was now being broadcast across the galaxy. It was faint, yes, but unmistakable. The signal was one of hope, a plea for help, a request for aid. The Vorith commanders exchanged uneasy glances. What was this? Why would the humans be broadcasting a call for help in the middle of a standoff? Did they have allies? Were there forces in the galaxy that would come to their aid? For the first time, the Vorith were uncertain. The galaxy was vast, and the humans were not as alone as they had once thought. On Earth, the news was being broadcasted worldwide. Jenna's ship had made contact, and the entire world was waiting for the next move. Governments were watching. Military forces were ready. There were whispers of other civilizations, other races, that might answer humanity's call. Could this be the turning point? Could the humans find help in time to stop the Vorith? Or was this just the beginning of a war that would consume everything? Admiral Jenna Rodriguez's gamble had worked. For now, the Vorith had not attacked. The humans had sent a message of peace and strength, and the galaxy had taken notice. But there was no guarantee that the Vorith would back down. They were not a species that forgive easily. The next few minutes, hours, even days would decide the fate of humanity. Earth stood on the edge of a precipice. Would they be able to survive, or would they fall under the shadow of the Vorith's crushing power? This part of the story builds the tension further as the Vorith hesitate, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats. Jenna's resolve strengthens, and the introduction of the mysterious signal from Earth raises the stakes even higher. The Vorith are forced to reconsider their approach, while humanity takes a stand. The suspense continues to build as the future of the galaxy hangs in the balance. The Vorith fleet hung in space like a massive predator waiting to strike, but the tension between the two forces was no longer just about power, it was about uncertainty. The human ship, carrying only a handful of brave souls, continued to hover just within the alien armada, its message of peace echoing in the cold void of space. The Vorith had made their threat clear, but something had shifted. They hadn't destroyed the human ship, they hadn't even fired a single shot. And now, there was a faint sense of doubt amongst their ranks. Jenna stood on the bridge of the human vessel, watching the Vorith ships loom closer, their massive, dark forms a stark contrast to her own vessel, which appeared tiny by comparison. Her crew was on edge, every member awaiting the moment when the first shot would be fired. Would it come from the Vorith, or would humanity somehow defy the expectations of the galaxy? "We're still not picking up any hostile activity," one of the crew members spoke up, his voice almost a whisper. "It's strange. They should have attacked by now." Jenna didn't respond at first. She was deep in thought. The Vorith were known for their ruthless conquests. Every species that had crossed their path had been forced into submission or annihilation. What made Earth so different? Was it their message of peace, or was it something more? A question of pride, of what the Vorith had miscalculated about humanity's will to survive. Her fingers twitched over the control panel, and she looked over at her second-in-command, Commander Holt. "Anything on their communications?" "Nothing new. They haven't responded in over an hour. They've just been watching," Holt replied, his brow furrowed in confusion. "We're still waiting, then," Jenna said, her voice steady, though inside, her nerves were taut. It had been a gamble, one she wasn't sure would pay off, but it was the only move she could make. Then, as if on cue, the communication system buzzed once more, cutting through the thick silence. The bridge crew stiffened. It was the Vorith fleet. Jenna straightened, her expression unreadable. This was it. This could be the moment that decided humanity's fate. A voice crackled through the speakers, harsh and unyielding. "Human vessel, you have tested our patience. Your species continues to survive against all odds, but your existence is a threat to the order of the galaxy. You are not worthy of peace. You are an infestation. You will not stand against us." Jenna's heart raced as the message was delivered with chilling finality. The Vorith were done with games. It was clear now. They had waited long enough. The words they spoke were not just threats. They were declarations. The aliens had decided that humanity was no longer worthy of consideration. "Ready all defensive systems," Jenna ordered, her voice calm but determined. "Prepare for the worst." For a moment, the crew looked at each other, the weight of her words settling in. They were prepared for this. They had trained for every scenario, and though this one seemed hopeless, they couldn't afford to give up now. Their survival depended on their resolve. But then, as Jenna stepped forward to issue further orders, the unexpected happened. The transmission didn't cut off with the Vorith's final words. There was a pause, and then a voice that was eerily calm, yet laced with something new, something Jenna hadn't heard before. "This is Commander Threx of the Vorith fleet," the voice began. "You have shown the courage to stand before us with nothing but a single vessel and a message of peace, and you have defied all expectations. We have watched you. We have seen the resolve of your species, and for the first time, we are not so sure that you are as weak as we once believed." Jenna's breath caught in her throat. This was not what she had expected. The Vorith were not known for second chances. They were predators, ruthless and unforgiving. And yet, here they were, speaking to her in a way that suggested hesitation. The Vorith commander continued, his tone now more reflective, even begrudgingly admiring. "We will not destroy you today. But understand this. Your actions have intrigued us. You have chosen to face us, not with an army, but with your will to survive. This is something we have never encountered before." Jenna's hands tightened around the control panel. Was this a trick? A ploy to lull them into a false sense of security? Or was it truly a shift in the Vorith's approach? She couldn't be sure, but there was one thing she did know. This wasn't over yet. "What do you want, Commander Threx?" Jenna asked, her voice steady, but carrying the weight of every life on Earth. She was not about to let her guard down, not when the Vorith had already shown their teeth. A long pause followed. "We seek understanding. We seek to know why you continue to fight, why you persist against all odds. We know that your kind is young, unlike the ancient species of the galaxy. But we also know that there is something within you, something that refuses to yield. We offer you a chance, human, a chance to prove yourselves." Jenna's pulse quickened. What was he saying? A chance. A chance to do what? To join them? To be subjugated? Or was this something else entirely? "Prove ourselves how?" she demanded, narrowing her eyes. "What do you want from us?" Commander Threx's voice lowered, almost as if speaking to himself more than to Jenna. "You have stood before us, alone and unarmed. And in doing so, you have sent a message not of weakness, but of defiance. And that defiance has sparked something in us, something ancient. We wish to see if you can do the same with others. We wish to see if you can stand against the galaxy as you have stood against us." Jenna's mind raced. This was not an offer of peace. It was a challenge. The Vorith were testing them, seeing if humanity could rally allies from across the stars. Could humanity stand alone against the greatest threat in the galaxy? Was the Vorith fleet truly offering them a chance to prove themselves, or was this merely the beginning of a greater battle that would determine who would dominate the galaxy? The silence between them stretched again. "If you can find your place among the stars," Threx continued, "then you may live. But if you fail, your species will be erased, and your existence forgotten." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Jenna and her crew in stunned silence. Jenna's heart raced, but her mind was clear. She had been given a chance, an opportunity to show the galaxy that humanity could stand tall. But the price was high. Too high. "They haven't destroyed us, not yet," Commander Holt said quietly, almost as if trying to convince himself as much as anyone else. "But they're watching us. They want us to prove ourselves, to fight for our place. This is not over." "No," Jenna whispered. "It's just beginning." She turned to the crew, meeting their eyes one by one. The weight of the galaxy seemed to press down on them, but there was a flicker of something in their eyes. Hope. A renewed sense of purpose. "We will fight. "We will show them that humanity will not bow to anyone," Jenna said, her voice filled with determination. "But we need to prepare. We need to be ready. This galaxy is vast, and the Vorith are only the beginning." This chapter adds a new twist to the story. The Vorith, once determined to destroy humanity, offer a challenge instead, a test of humanity's ability to survive and thrive among the stars. Jenna and her crew must now decide what kind of future humanity will have in this new, uncertain galaxy. Will they rise to the occasion, or will they fail under the weight of their own survival? The suspense continues to build as new possibilities emerge, and the fate of humanity rests on its ability to prove itself in the face of overwhelming odds. The message from the Vorith fleet lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Jenna stood at the command console, her fingers twitching over the controls, but she didn't touch anything just yet. The entire bridge was tense, every member of the crew holding their breath, uncertain of what had just happened. The Vorith had offered them a chance to prove themselves, but at what cost? She glanced around, meeting the eyes of her officers. They were just as unsure as she was. But beneath the unease, there was something else, a flicker of hope. Humanity had just been given a moment to stand tall in the face of the galaxy's greatest threat, and that was something Jenna couldn't ignore. "We need to think this through," Jenna said, her voice steady despite the weight of it all. "We've been given an opportunity, but we don't know what's coming next. We can't move blindly." Commander Holt nodded, his brow furrowed. "Admiral, they want us to fight, to prove that we're not a weak species. But the question is, fight what? The Vorith? Or are they testing us in another way? The stakes are higher now, and we need to be prepared for anything." Jenna turned to the tactical officer, Lieutenant Rhodes. "Anything on our sensors? Any signs of movement from their fleet?" "Nothing new yet, Admiral," Rhodes replied. "The Vorith are still holding their position. It's like they're watching us, waiting for something. Whatever they want, it's not clear yet." Jenna exhaled slowly. "We need to start planning. If the Vorith are testing us, they won't give us time to hesitate. We need to prove we can stand up to them. Not just to survive, but to show that humanity has earned its place in this galaxy." The crew remained silent as they absorbed her words. But it was true, their fight had just begun. The Vorith had given them a chance, but that was just the first hurdle. They weren't going to make it easy. There would be no simple path ahead, no clear victory. They were alone, isolated in the vastness of space, with only their wits, courage, and unity to guide them. But Jenna had made her choice. They weren't backing down. "Gather all available data on known alien civilizations," Jenna ordered, her voice firm. "We need to know who else might be out there, who else might come to our aid. We need allies. We need to prove we're not alone in this fight." "Understood, Admiral," Holt said, already working on his console. "I'll pull up everything we've got." Jenna turned back to the view screen, her eyes narrowing as she stared at the distant Vorith fleet. She couldn't afford to let the pressure of the situation overwhelm her. She had to be the rock the crew could rely on, no matter how uncertain things became. The crew worked swiftly, gathering data on known civilizations, scanning for any sign of potential allies. The Vorith had made it clear they weren't just testing humanity's strength, they were testing humanity's resolve to stand on its own. But that resolve would have to be bolstered by more than just one ship. It would take everything they had, every ounce of energy, to survive this trial. Hours passed in tense silence. The ship's systems hummed with activity as everyone worked, each task a small piece of the larger puzzle they needed to solve. Yet, as time stretched on, one question lingered. Would humanity be able to find a way to prove itself? Could they rally others to their side in time to face the Vorith? Finally, Commander Holt looked up from his console. "Admiral, I've got something." Jenna straightened, stepping closer. "What have you got?" Holt turned the screen toward her. "It's a signal, a faint one. It's not much, but it's coming from the edge of known space. It could be an alien vessel, or it could be a distress signal from another human colony. It's too far to be a clear read, but it's something. Jenna's heart skipped a beat. Could it be from an ally? Someone willing to help us? It's possible, Holt replied. But it's risky. We don't know what or who it is. We'll need to send a recon team to investigate. Jenna paused, considering. It was their best lead, but there was no guarantee that whoever, or whatever, was sending that signal would be friendly. The Vorith would likely be watching closely, waiting for any sign of weakness or hesitation. Sending out a recon team could be dangerous, but they needed information. They needed allies, and they couldn't afford to waste time. Prepare the recon team, Jenna ordered. We need to know what that signal is. But make no mistake, we don't act recklessly. Keep our distance and remain undetected. We're not taking unnecessary risks. The crew nodded, and preparations began. The recon team would take the ship's smaller scout vessel, which was equipped for long-range scanning and stealth operations. It would be their best chance to approach the source of the signal without being noticed. As the hours passed and the team made their final preparations, Jenna couldn't help but feel the weight of the choices ahead. Every decision now carried the risk of their survival, and the survival of humanity itself. The Vorith were relentless, but if they could prove their worth, if they could find the strength to stand against them, then perhaps, just perhaps, they could carve out a future in this galaxy. Admiral, Rhodes called out, breaking her thoughts. The Vorith fleet is starting to move. They've sent one ship ahead. It's coming towards us. Jenna's pulse quickened. The test had begun. The Vorith were done waiting. They were coming for her ship. She glanced at Holt, who immediately began sending out defensive commands. We need to hold our position, Jenna said, her voice tight with determination. Activate all shields and prepare for possible engagement. The recon team has to launch. Now. This may be the only chance we get. As the recon team boarded the scout vessel, Jenna felt a strange sense of urgency settle over her. This wasn't just a test from the Vorith. This was their chance to prove humanity's worth, to show the galaxy that they would not be intimidated, that they had something worth fighting for. It wasn't just about survival. It was about standing up, about showing the universe that humanity had a place among the stars. The small scout ship detached from the human vessel, its engines humming softly as it disappeared into the vastness of space. On the bridge, Jenna watched as the Vorith ship closed the distance. The silence that followed was suffocating. Now we wait, Jenna said, her voice low. Seconds stretched into minutes. The Vorith ship continued its approach, slow and deliberate. It was clear they weren't attacking yet. They were waiting for something. The tension on the bridge was palpable. Suddenly, the communication system buzzed to life again. A sharp, crackling voice came through. Human vessel, this is Commander Threx. You've made your choice. Your survival depends on your actions. If you do not prove your worth, we will show you what happens to those who waste our time. Jenna's grip on the console tightened. Understood, she said quietly. She wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. The stakes had never been higher. The Vorith were coming. And now, it was up to humanity to show them that they were not to be underestimated. The recon team had to return with something valuable. This was their moment to turn the tide. Jenna stood tall, her voice commanding and firm. Prepare for what comes next. We will not be the ones to falter. The future of humanity rested on their shoulders, and they would fight, no matter what. The recon team's small scout ship had already drifted into the void, carrying with it humanity's hopes of finding an ally, or at the very least, valuable information. As the seconds ticked by, the tension aboard the human ship grew, the weight of the entire galaxy seeming to press down upon them. Jenna stood at the command console, her eyes fixed on the view screen where the Vorith ship, a towering mass of weapons and menace, was slowly approaching. We've got to know what that signal was, Admiral, Commander Holt said, his voice steady despite the mounting pressure. If it's an ally, If it's a chance, then we need to seize it. Jenna nodded grimly, her mind focused. The Vorith ship was closing in, its dark form against the backdrop of space, a reminder that they were not alone, and that the moment of truth was near. The fate of humanity wasn't in their hands alone anymore. It was up to them to prove themselves worthy of survival. The bridge hummed with activity as the crew monitored every system, every sensor. Lieutenant Rhodes kept a close eye on the Vorith fleet, his fingers twitching over his console as he analyzed their movements. "Admiral, the Vorith are moving at an accelerated pace," Rhodes reported. "They're positioning their fleet around us. They might be preparing to strike." Jenna didn't flinch. She had been expecting this. The Vorith had given them a chance, yes, but they had also made their intentions clear. If humanity couldn't prove their worth, they would be destroyed. There would be no mercy, no second chances. "Shields up," Jenna ordered, her voice sharp. "Prepare for battle. We don't know what the Vorith will do, but we'll be ready for anything." The crew swiftly moved to their stations, activating defensive measures, preparing weapon systems, and locking down every available option to ensure they stood a chance. The hum of energy surged through the ship, the power of the shields crackling to life as they surrounded the human vessel, encasing it in a protective barrier. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Every second that passed seemed like an eternity as the Vorith ship neared. Jenna could feel the weight of the decision pressing on her. She had placed everything on this, on showing the Vorith they were more than just a weak species. "We've been given a chance," she whispered to herself. "We have to make it count." Suddenly, the communication system buzzed to life again, cutting through the tension. This time, it wasn't the Vorith commander's voice. It was the recon team. Jenna's heart skipped a beat. The small scout ship had returned, and they had something. "Admiral, this is Lieutenant Rogers," came the voice from the recon team, crackling with static. "We've located the source of the signal. It's not an enemy fleet. It's a human colony, an outpost. It's been hidden for decades, but we found it, and we're not alone here. There are ships, older but still operational." Jenna's pulse raced. A hidden human colony. Ships. This was unexpected and a game-changer. She had hoped for some sort of signal, but she hadn't dared to imagine it could be an entire colony, let alone a fleet of hidden ships. "Are they friendly?" Jenna asked, her voice urgent. The Vorith were moments away from striking, and she needed to know if this new discovery could be their salvation. "Yes," Rogers responded, after a pause. "They've agreed to come to our aid. The fleet is small, but it's enough to make a difference. They've been in hiding, but they've been waiting for a sign, for someone to come to them. And now, they're ready to fight." The bridge erupted in a mix of gasps and muted cheers. The crew exchanged looks of disbelief and joy. Humanity wasn't as alone as they had thought. There was hope. Allies in the form of this hidden colony were now on their way, and the Vorith had no idea what was coming. Jenna quickly regained her composure, her mind calculating. They had a chance. Now they had to hold on to it. "Prepare the fleet for immediate engagement," she commanded. "Get us in position now. We've got backup, and we're not wasting this opportunity." Commander Holt's voice came through, tense but confident. "Admiral, the Vorith fleet is still moving toward us. Their lead ship is nearly within striking range." "Let them come," Jenna said firmly. "We fight, and we show them that humanity is not to be underestimated." Seconds later, the human ship turned, heading toward the newly arrived fleet of the hidden colony. The massive ships, though older, were still formidable. Their weapons were intact, their shields strong. They had been hidden from the galaxy for years, but now they were coming out of the shadows to stand beside humanity in the fight for survival. Jenna felt a surge of pride as she saw the ships forming up beside them, their dark silhouettes joining the human vessel in the cold expanse of space. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. The Vorith had made their move, But humanity had something they hadn't expected: unity. The strength of many, united against the might of one. All ships, open fire on the Vorith. Jenna commanded, her voice resolute. We stand together, and we fight. The first volley of energy blasts lit up the void of space, streaking across the battlefield with deadly accuracy. The Vorith lead ship attempted to retaliate, but the newly arrived human fleet was ready. They fired with precision, targeting weak spots on the Vorith ships. The Vorith, taken by surprise, faltered for just a moment. The tide had turned. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. They were pushing back. Jenna watched as the battle unfolded. The Vorith were powerful, but the human spirit, fueled by the knowledge that they had allies, that they had a chance, was a force to be reckoned with. The combined human fleet moved in tight formation, coordinating attacks with the precision of a well-oiled machine. For a brief moment, it felt like the impossible was within reach. The Vorith, caught off guard, were scrambling to adjust, firing back with full force, but it wasn't enough. The humans had a purpose now, a reason to fight, and they were proving that they could stand against even the mightiest foe. Admiral, we've got a breakthrough on the Vorith lead ship. Lieutenant Rhodes shouted, his voice filled with excitement. Their shields are failing. We've got a shot at taking them down. Jenna's pulse quickened. Do it. Focus everything on that lead ship. We end this now. With a focused effort, the human and allied ships targeted the lead Vorith vessel, concentrating all firepower on its vulnerable points. Explosions ripped through its hull as shields collapsed, and the Vorith ship finally started to buckle under the relentless assault. The tide was turning. The Vorith were no longer the ones in control. Humanity had made its stand, and it was working. Admiral, Holt said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and disbelief. We've done it. The lead ship is down. The Vorith fleet is pulling back. The relief that washed over the crew was palpable. The Vorith, who had been so certain of their victory, were retreating. Jenna knew that this wasn't the end of the war, but it was a victory that showed the galaxy that humanity would not fall quietly into the shadows. We did it, Jenna whispered, her voice hoarse with emotion. We proved ourselves. But even as the Vorith fleet began to retreat, Jenna knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and many more challenges lay ahead, but humanity had shown it could stand tall, and that, more than anything, would determine their future in the stars. As the battle subsided, Jenna looked out at the stars, a sense of quiet triumph filling her chest. The galaxy had watched, and humanity had survived, and they would continue to fight, because now they knew they could. The war had only just begun.